We'll get started. 10 minutes. Happy running if you are on your run while you listen to this. So today I'm going to jump into a question that came up on the Q&A post on the STEPN Injury Prevention Facebook group from Johan Linden. And it's a really good place to start and something that's really important to address early on in these podcast series. And that's about soreness and whether or not you should be running when you are sore and have tight muscles. Which, when you've signed up for STEPN and you know how much you can be earning each day as you run, it's pretty tempting to push through basically anything to get that sweet GST. But it's really important to understand when it is definitely appropriate to go and seek medical attention and make sure you know exactly what you're working with and to be able to just screen for certain conditions. So Johan's got his question here. I'm just pulling it up and he's saying, can I keep running daily despite sore and tight muscles? Will my body catch up and recover faster once it gets the new stressed? And is it better in the beginning to have a daily long run or two shorter runs while being in the beginning and building up my strength? Background is he's been running about 25 minutes a day at an average of 9 kilometers, which feels like a warm-up pace to me. I often split up in 2 sessions, one in the morning and one in the evening, and I haven't been running for quite a few years. Stamina is good enough for twice that, but leg muscles stay sore and tight. I guess you mean fitness. You're good enough fitness, yep. So I do stretch after each run, but especially the inner thigh muscle in the right leg is super tight. So we're going to have a look in this episode about the soreness and what kind of pain is okay to maybe be a bit more comfortable with and what you should definitely see a medical professional about. And so when it comes to soreness, the thing that I think is going to be most useful for people is think about this term we have in physiotherapy called irritability, which is basically the combination of 3 things. So first up, it's how intense does it get? So out of 10, if 10 out of 10 pain is the worst pain you've ever felt in your life, how intense is this particular pain? If it's a 1 or a 2 out of 10, you don't really, feel it, you can easily forget about it, and that's, that's on the better side of things. And if it gets really intense to the point where, you I guess the equivalent of like breaking a bone or women having giving birth, then that's sort of more your 10 out of 10 pain. So we've got the first thing, which is intensity, and then we've got how quickly does it come on. So is this something that as soon as you take your first step, you start to get this really intense pain, and does it start out by being at that really intense pain, or does it ramp up over time? So that's the how quickly does the pain set in. And then the third thing is how quickly does it settle down? So once you've stopped running, does the pain go away immediately? Are you back to 0 out of 10? Or does it stay at that high level that does it stay at a 9 out of 10 pain for 30 seconds a minute? Does it stay, does it go from 9 down to about a 6 or a 7? Does it stay really painful for a while? And those 3 factors give us this idea of irritability. So might seem like a funny word, but basically, is your pain really irritable or is it not so irritable? And if it is on that high on that irritability scale, so it gets really intense, it comes on really quickly, and it sticks around for a long time, that's something that you don't want to be just running through all the time and pushing through, because that's probably a sign that there's something there that you could cause yourself issues down the line or pretty immediately if you really push through. But if it's on that kind of 1 or 2 out of 10 and comes on after you've done 45 minutes of running, and then as soon as you stop it goes away, then sure, it's a bit of a niggle, a bit uncomfortable, but it's unlikely that that's going to be as serious as something higher on the irritability scale. And you can probably just get away with pushing, generally increasing your running load gradually and strengthening up to stay on top of it. So that's the term irritability that I think is really useful for people to understand. The next thing that I think is really key to understand are there certain red flags. So that's basically warning signs of certain symptoms that it's a really good idea to see a professional about to make sure that there's nothing sinister going on. So basically the things you want to look for, first up is anything kind of nerve pain related or nerve symptoms. So that's going to be tingling, numbness, shooting, burning pain down your leg, particularly if there's back pain involved. And loss of sensation. So that numbness in your feet in like a sock-like distribution. Definitely something you want to be looking at, getting checked out pretty quickly. Also on that nerve side of things is like if you feel really like sudden weakness in your legs. So if your legs sort of feel like they're giving way, or just buckling underneath you. Also on that same sort of nerve side of things is there are certain nerves that innervate your bladder and bowels. So if you do notice any, if you've got back pain and there's been changes to basically not being able to control going to the toilet, whether that's urinary or fecal retention, so not being able to go, or not being able to stop going, both of those factors, it's just so important to get that looked at, just cleared that there's nothing sinister going on there. So the other things to keep in mind is pain overnight. So if you have this pain that wakes you up in the middle of the night and you can't get rid of no matter like what position you get into, and it just randomly wakes you up and you can't get back to sleep, when you're not loading your body, then that's probably a sign that it's worth getting looked at by a doctor or a physiotherapist or physical therapist, just to clear that there's nothing sinister going on there. So I guess they're the big things. Otherwise, like if you've had any cardiovascular symptoms or conditions, so if like heart disease issues, so you might have like chest pain while you're running, or tingling or numbness down your arm, dizziness, like double vision, any of those like sort of on the cardiovascular side of things as well. Really important not just to think about the muscles and bones, but also think about the cardiovascular system, which is probably quite a bit of a new stress for a lot of people. So they're the big things to look out for. So when Johan's question about can I keep running daily despite sore and tight muscles, then yeah, if it's at that sort of sore where, it's called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, after you've been done a big gym session that you haven't done in a while, something like that, then pushing through that, as long as it doesn't get too bad, is okay. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is tight muscles. So a lot of people, and Johan saying here that he does stretch after each run. A lot of people sort of think that when you're tight and if you get injured, it's all about stretching, and we'll talk about this in more detail. But just you got to think about why the muscles get tight in the first place. So basically, your muscles get tight because you exceed their capacity to do work. So basically, you've worked them harder than they're currently able to do, and so your body goes into like a muscle spasm to try and limit that activity or movement that's caused that fatigue. So it's really good that the body does this, because otherwise, if when we got tired, if our brain basically told our muscles just to completely relax, then we'd end up like a mess on the floor whenever we got tired. And even worse, it would be pretty dangerous for things like our spinal cord if the muscles around your back suddenly just went to jelly as soon as they got tired. So fortunately, they go really tight and try and limit movement that way. So people then think like, oh, I've got to stretch, to try and like loosen off those tight muscles, or they say, oh, I've got a foam roller, I've got to get massages, which can be helpful. But if you think about what's causing the issue there, then it's really that capacity factor. And it's going to be more about building up your running gradually, which obviously you've got some limitations around using your daily energy with STEPN, but also looking at building up muscular strength. So that also helps build our capacity. And so I will be providing resources around strengthening and conditioning work that you can do. Excuse me, I'm just going to drink some water. But yeah, I think stretching is great, but don't think that it's going to be the magical cure-all for all things. So I really like how Johan's saying here that he's splitting up the run into 2 sessions. That can be a nice way of just making it a bit easier to manage. But the thing you've got to also remember is that recovery is super important. And if you're kind of constantly running every 12 hours, that doesn't give yourself heaps of times for recovery. So make sure you are getting, you're really focusing on your sleep, your nutrition, and your stress management. And those are 3 recovery factors that I'm going to be talking about and providing resources for a lot more going forward. So I think that's all we have time for. My Garmin is giving me the buzzer, so hopefully you've just finished earning your STEPN, or if you've got more energy, all those people out there who have plenty of sneakers and definitely jealous, but happy rest of your running. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening. If you are just listening via the podcast, make sure you join the Injury Prevention Facebook group. That's where I'll be putting up resources like the exercises and things around recovery. Also, it's where you can ask questions, just like Johan has done here, for me to answer in these short daily podcasts. If you have got value out of what I'm doing, I'm going for a slightly different sort of business model in the new kind of Web3 era of basically giving my Solana wallet address. And if you have been on a run and you've earned a few GST, consider sending some my way. But if not, I'm just more than happy to give out this information to help people do what I think is one of the best things you can do with your body, which is running. So happy running, and I'll see you tomorrow.